Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Tiana here once again, and I am of course back for the likes of the forms of the Maxi Toys videos, as you probably expect at this point in time. So of course, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe for the Nintendo Switch, basically based off from Kirby's Return to Dreamland back on the Nintendo Wii, while we're still playing through Extra Mode, basically. So, of course, as you probably already know, I'm going to be talking over for this particular cutscene, just like the forms of how it does it on any other cutscenes, during the forms of in Extra Mode, because obviously it plays out exactly the same, with one in particular exception though, but that will come until for later. So even then, so yeah, last time we've essentially did manage to able to fully 100% everything in terms of the forms of World 7, which is of course Dangerous Dinner, and also we did somehow manage to pick up the final 15 energy spheres, and on top of that we also managed to able to beat the likes out of the forms of Landria EX, which is essentially more likely the hard version of that particular boss fight, thanks to the forms of that particular Kirby Tornado ability. That obviously means about the fact that we somehow dished out the forms of the amount of health very easily. So today for this video is about the fact that this is going to be, presumably, not so much the finale just yet though, in terms of the forms of the Extra Mode, but aside from all that stuff though, welcome to the forms of presumably the final world again, except this time about the fact that we're going to be doing with this with a lesser amount of health, which means we're going back into another dimension for the second time. So everything else will be come to expect at this point, even though that I feel like about the fact that with World 8 in mind, that it's going to be a little bit more difficult than the forms of how it does on the previous worlds, in terms of the forms of the Extra Mode as far as this is concerned. So, but of course about the fact that we still need to be able to catch a ride with Landria again, so just so I'm sure about the fact that I feel like about the fact that, well, you probably already know what to expect. So, apologize for my commentary is a little bit slightly awkward and during the forms have been today, but that's just because about the fact that we've already explained quite a lot of stuff thanks to the forms of the Gamescom so far, but I'm sure that Ray the Flying Squirrel were able to actually keep on mentioning about a lot of stuff during the forms of tomorrow's Super Mario RPG, and as a result for that particular matter though is about the fact that it looks like that next week is going to be the beginning portion of September next week. So even then though, it is especially noticeable about that specific point that it might actually gets like, you know, autumn is just around the corner, so even then there's not much else to explain about this and all that stuff. So yeah, it's a shame. I don't think it's possible we can able to reach ourselves into a maximum of 99 extra lives, but that's okay for me, because obviously about that specific point that, well, nothing can go wrong when it comes to able to actually just trying to reach a certain amount of extra lives, unlike the forms of how it does it on certain, 2D Mario games, which is specifically New Super Mario Bros. On the DS, and New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and New Super Mario Bros. 2, and New Super Mario Bros. U, and maybe presumably Super Mario Bros. Wonder in the future, and especially noticeable with Super Mario 3D Land and 3D World, that basically though, it is so ridiculously easy to able to grind as many of those extra lives as much as you can, especially noticeable because concerning about that specific tricks and stuff like that, so there's not much else to write to home about when it comes to likely mentioning about certain things like this. So, anyway, so a few things I want to explain for this point today, and that's what appears to be about the fact that today's date is of course the 25th of August today, in some cases in 2023 today. And it looks like, in addition about the fact that we've only got about 1 week left until we're approaching onto the next month, which appears to be, of course, the autumn season, and especially noticeable with the forms of the September month as a result. So, in addition about that specific stuff though, is that out of nowhere, is that specifically when it gets to the point in during the forms have been the 27th of August, that's what appears to be about the fact that the Super Mario Bros. Movie is going to be returning onto the theaters until the 27th of August, mainly due to the forms of the National Cinema Day. So meaning about the fact that even though it kind of feels a bit redundant, but it's nice to be able to actually give the Super Mario Bros. Movie another chance for the sake of the forms of making its appearance for the actual big screen's display. So yeah, everything else will be pretty much expected at that point. So But yeah, aside from all that stuff though, there's also another explanation I should probably talk about. That's what appears to be about the fact that recently, that, no matter what though, from what I've found out, whenever I do manage able to keep on playing Mario Kart Tour again, and as a result, what I've found out is that with the, two characters, specifically two new drivers that is actually introduced during the informs of that particular summer tour so far. It seems that no matter what though, I did manage to double check on the actual item description for the sake of the forms of not only Mario Black Suit variant, but also with the forms of Purple Toad Pit Crew variant, that basically though they both managed able to have, while one of them does manage to contain the forms of the Mushroom Cannon, which I am so disappointed, and on top of that, there's also the Giga Bomb. So as a result, for Mario Black Suit variant, he does have a Mushroom Cannon, which I am already disappointed because it does give me a lot of disadvantages, especially concerning about that specific point that it does give a lot of CPUs a lot of catch up to do. Now on top of all that stuff though is about the fact that at the very least the costume itself looks very recognizable from the likes of in Super Mario Odyssey, but aside from all that stuff though, I'm just so disappointed with that item choice. But, luckily, for those of you probably wondering, for the Purple Toad Pit Crew variation, that obviously he does manage to have himself a Giga Bomb, which I will say that's a really good item, but it does have some bit of drawbacks though, I will admit though right away. But I don't feel like trying to talk about that for right now, because as you can tell, I'm pretty much going to focus on trying to able to take on Lord EX, including Mega Lord himself. Although obviously about that specific point that this is a part that gives me a lot of trouble at points, especially noticeable that every time, whenever I was trying to able to be fast and quick on this part, sometimes though I felt a little bit too hasty when it comes to able to not only ramming against with him, but it's also worth noting for us about the fact that exponentially speaking though is just, well, with this new attacks that he's gonna pull off, and as a result that I'm thinking I'm almost able to lose a life right there, so even then though, yep, there goes my extra life, and that's what happens if you die. So you ended up almost crash landing into one of those random spots, and it's definitely not easy though. It's definitely not as easy as it looks, especially concerning about that specific point that it always requires a lot of concentration here and there. And on top of all that stuff though, what makes this incredibly unfair for me though, is that it doesn't give you the ability to able to utilize the souvenir item on this specific point, which I understand for the forms of the challenge and all that, but I felt it was a little bit unfair when it comes to likely not utilizing the actual energy drinks on this specific part. But at the very least though, once we get the forms of the True Arena coming up, specifically next Thursday, to be more specifically towards the very end of August potentially, obviously about the fact no matter what though, we're able to try to deal with him for the better run, for the sake of the forms of not only we can able to actually get ourselves our full health back, but also about the fact that we can able to dish out the forms of that particular lore EX, no problem. So even then though, everything else will become to expect. But luckily though, if you keep on getting hit multiple times during the forms of that specific fight, obviously about the fact that there's a healing item you can able to potentially try to obtain. So that's something worth noting for. Oh jeez, I did not expect it for that particular projectile to somehow pop out of nowhere. But either way though, that's as far as I can usually say about this, I guess, especially concerning about that specific point that I can't believe we actually getting nearly at the end for the likes of the forms of the extra mode before we move on to the final game mode in terms of the forms of Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe as the entire remake itself. That's of course the True Arena. So, and as far as the True Arena, as far as I'm concerned, it does manage to able to add some new additions to the table, which I'm honestly quite shocked about it, especially noticeable because concerning about the specific point that we've already technically able to actually beat certain bosses during the forms of not only on extra mode so far, but also with the forms of Mega Lore Epilogue. So even then though, that might be a sight to behold, and especially noticeable that we might still able to actually bump into certain secret bosses every once in a while, including buddy forms of Galactic Knight, and that's as far as I can usually think about it. So even then, let's just go ahead and hopefully try to finish him off for good, even potentially speaking of sometimes it can take a bit of while to able to actually beat the likes out of him. So there we go, we finally managed able to completely done with this part. So now we can able to see that new cutscene that we're able to see something completely different compared to the normal version. So yeah, for that particular cutscene right there, that's Megalore is going to turn into a different transformation, something a little bit more aggressive, and especially noticeable is more likely like a tougher variation of the forms of Megalore himself, but I'm sure we're able to actually kick his butt no problem, thanks to the forms of not only for useful souvenir items that we can potentially try to use, but also about the fact that we can able to actually just to go ahead and well, you know what I'm saying. So even then though, let's just go ahead and deal with the forms of Megalore again. So, except now with lesser amounts of health, as you'd probably expect at this point. So, I suppose that once we get the forms of the challenge stages at some point until next Tuesday, that this will be the definition of the final time when it comes to dealing with bosses with lesser amounts of health. Because let's face it though, that I just really want to get this mode finished and done and over with before we move on to the last few bits here and there, before we end off this particular Let's Play. Although don't get me wrong, the entire journey is quite exhilarating when it comes to likely going through certain easy parts all the way up to some tough and hardest aspects throughout. But I'm sure about the fact that I would say that the entire journey so far is pretty worth it, especially concerning about that specific point that obviously about the fact that despite with the forms of the massive gap when it comes to likely taking a break on certain things throughout, but I will say is about the fact that we can potentially try to able to deal with the forms of, well, suffice to say, I think we actually did manage to able to consider that the second half, in terms of the forms of Kirby's Return to Dreamland's Deluxe progression so far, especially concerning we're still on August after all, is actually quite impressive. Even though, mind you, that unlike it during the forms have been, let's just say in April and stuff like that, that usually we did the first half of that particular playthrough, like as a result we just somehow managed to win through the entire story mode, and in addition to the forms of those challenge stages here and there as well, and especially noticeable with the forms of Megalore epilogue. And it wasn't until when it gets to May, on the other hand, that we did somehow manage to able to briefly tackle through the regular arena, which as a result, that until it wasn't until when 3 months later, which yes, this is a prime example about the fact that during the forms in the past few months, that basically this is the reason why it took so long to able to actually get to a lot of progressioning for Kirby's Return to Dreamland's Deluxe. That's because about the fact that was this whole entire mission structure is always seems to be the case. So anyways, let's go ahead and decide to able to actually go ahead and take on, you know, Megalore EX, in some cases a stronger variation of Megalore himself. So of course, much like the forms of how it does it on Grand Duma EX, and that is of course we do need to utilize the forms of the super abilities in order to able to deal with the forms of some hitboxes here and there, or specifically when it comes to likely draining the actual health bar for the sake of the forms of Megalore himself. So yeah, nothing different from there, apart from the fact that until when it gets to the point until on the final portion of the game, specifically the true arena, that we're obviously going to have to come across into something completely different. So, but I'm sure about the fact that we were able to actually save that particular topic for later, so even then though, everything else will come to expect. And something tells me about the fact that we still need to able to rotate the control stick in order to able to actually finish them off, unlike the forms of the Wii version that you have to shake the Wii remote up and down, like, you know, motion mashing and stuff like that. So, Anyway, I don't suppose if you noticed, but every time whenever I was playing Mario Kart Tour again, like, you know, so far we actually did some fully completely done with everything on the summer tour already. I don't know about you, but for whatever reason, is that the game decides to able to go a lot laggy recently. Like, it just somehow drops the actual frames per second almost. Like, I know for a fact that the actual performance is not exactly the strongest at the moment, but I'm sure they're trying to able to address something for the patch one day. Likely also about the fact that every time whenever we go into the forms of Madrid Drive, which by the way, some people seem to say about the fact that ever since in Athens Dash, that between Athens Dash along with the forms of Madrid Drive, both of those tracks' names are purely lazy, which I don't know about you, but I'm guessing because of how the fact that they're trying to make it a little bit more simplified when it comes to knowing about the forms of certain city courses do have their specific simple names on the last stuff, which as a result for that particular matter though, I could just wish that they were able to actually have unique names to it though, which as a result just make things a little bit interesting. I don't know about you, because relatively speaking though, it's about the fact that what really matters to me anyway, is about the fact that exponentially is that Madrid Drive is definitely coming on to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for sure, but we have no idea what specific track placement is going to be placed in one of those cups in particular, which there are Acorn Cup and especially noticeable with the forms of the Spiny Cup as well, but I'm sure we'll be able to find out some more details about that if they do somehow manage to able to find that confirmation during the forms of that particular, you know what I'm saying, the 6th and final wave for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So, I know I keep on about it, but even then though, oh gee, looks like the crown looks a bit different. So this means about the fact that we can now able to take on Megalor's Soul. So in some cases though, it's definitely a little bit harder than the forms of how it does it on the regular Megalor second phase as far as this is concerned. So hopefully we'll try to able to dish them out no problem, especially noticeable concerning about that specific point with, again, thanks to the faults of the Super Net items, that makes the entire journey not so much of a pace breaker, although sure, it can ruin the challenge for a bit, but to me though, I just want to get this thing finished before we move on to something else. So, but still, I had a lot of fun with this game so far, especially concerning about that specific point, despite with the forms of a lot of repetition for the sake of the forms of you know, some sub-games we have to keep on replaying through, but of course I will address that once we get to the finale portion of Kirby's Eternal Dreamlands Deluxe, especially noticeable concerning about that particular point that, you know, once we finish up everything for the sake of the forms of, you know, the extra mode itself that we can able to tackle through the final mode, before we're able to actually do that on the other hand, that there are some, other things I could possibly show just to you around the same time as the forms of the True Arena coming up. That's what appears to be by the forms of the Amiibo functionality for this game, and especially noticeable with the forms of some other stuff in general. And heck, let's not forget ourselves with the forms of the Megalore Help mode, which I think I should probably save that for last, mainly because about the fact that it's basically just an easy mode of the game, where if you obviously do get yourselves a double units of health, and especially noticeable every time you fall off the stage, Megalore decide able to actually just to give you a helping hand. So it feels very similar to the forms of how it does it on Tails mode for the sake of the forms of, you know, Sonic Colors Ultimate, if you probably get the idea of how that's going to turn out. So, but either way, yeah, that's not much else I can say about this, I guess. Even though hopefully by that time, once we're able to get to the True Arena, that we can able to actually take down a lot of bosses' health within like no few seconds flat or anything else like that. And I suppose the final thing I should probably explain about this as well is that recently I finished the rest of the forms of the Sarah Jane Adventures series recently today, and as a result I did have a lot of enjoyable time with it. Sure, it does have some very cheesy moments here and there, but regardless of everything else though, that's actually a quite enjoyable experience in my opinion, although sure, despite the fact that it's basically like a children's version of Doctor Who, but I don't care, because obviously I do really enjoy the series to me, especially concerning about the specific point, but he forms the same familiar characters that we all recognized ever since during the forms of in the Doctor Who franchise, so everything else will become to expect at that point. So And also about the fact that obviously Ray has already explained about this ever since in Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Advance recently. Obviously that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has received yet another update patch. So, and also same applies with the forms that, you know, that once again that Sega is pretty much going to be over-exaggerating with the forms of that digital deluxe editions when it comes to certain content and well, whatever. Like, I know for the fact that they really want money, basically, but for whatever reason, it's about the fact that certain other contents, as far as Ray has already explained about this, since and yesterday, that it seems they might as well able to be obsessed with all that particular, you know, digital deluxe edition, which adds them a lot of content, so... But either way, that pretty much takes care of the forms of Megalor's Soul, as far as this particular boss fight is concerned, so... It's definitely a little bit tricky, especially noticeable he does have some more super abilities based off from the likes of not only Grand Hammer, but also with the forms of Flare Beam, and pretty much everything else as you probably expect at this point, so... And relatively speaking, we need to get the heck out of here before anything else goes all pure chaos. And obviously about that specific point that I don't think it's a possibility, there won't be any hard mode variation of the forms of Megalore Epilogue, because technically we've already accomplished that basically, ever since during the forms of in a regular story mode, or potentially speaking after completing the regular story mode version of the entire main game itself. But even then though still, that might be something more likely for speculation or something. Which reminds me that when it comes to the forms of not only Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, including by the forms of possibility of Metroid Prime Remastered or something like that, for some reason they never actually get ourselves the version patch updates, unlike certain other games for sure. Like for instance with the forms of I don't know what you call it actually, because I know for a fact it has been quite a few days since I actually have last played my Nintendo Switch, and in fact it's been about 2 days ago since I played this, and especially noticeable that, oh yeah, we only got about 5 more days to go until the, you know, Mario Plus Rapid Sparks of Hope DLC is going to be just around the corner. Now as a result, I cannot wait able to play as Rayman again after the events of, you know, Rayman Legends and any other Rayman games as far as I did manage to play so far. So even then though, it will be pretty cool to able to actually see Rayman actually uses some Mario items, which is specifically Mushroom, Power Blocks, and you name it. So even then though, that'll be a pretty cool experience whenever that particular DLC comes out. So, but still, no matter what though, it's about the fact that that'll be a pretty cool treatment when it comes to the Switch experience, when it comes to the forms of experiencing certain DLC for not only Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, but also with Sonic Frontiers as well. So relatively speaking though, at the very least with Sonic Frontiers though, you're able to actually get some stuff for free, so that's that. So, and in fact, I'm pretty certain when it comes to the forms of the Final Horizons free update, I'm pretty certain that it might actually do the exact same unlockable method as the forms of how it does it from, let's just say, the Battle Rush challenges, and especially noticeable with the Cyberspace challenges modes, that I'm pretty certain you do need to able to beat the main game first, or potentially speaking something else. Well, I suppose we'll find out during at some point until next month, like I said before, since during forms have been on Wednesday potentially, so... But there we go, we finally managed able to beat in the extra mode. Well, not exactly just yet though, because obviously we still got some challenge stages that we need to go through. In addition to that though, is about the fact that much like the original Wii version of this specific extra mode completion, obviously you will able to see those very unique, cute icons for, you know, right next to the actual like big captions on the actual staff credit sequence, which as a result is actually a pretty cute touch. Even especially noticeable, it does kind of reminds me of a similar vibe as the forms of maybe Kirby Superstar Ultra or something like that. Mind you, it's been about a couple of months ago since I actually have last played Kirby Superstar Ultra on the DS. Well, mind you, I'm still in the actual progression at the moment when it comes to likely just trying to able to complete, you know what I'm saying, the forms of every single playable characters and help with the hero mode, which let me tell you, it's pretty tough though, especially concerning about the specific disadvantages and even certain advantages for certain ally players as far as I'm concerned. But regardless of such though, it's about the fact that, well, it wasn't until when it gets to the point once we get into Kirby-style allies, I believe we're going to be able to do the same thing, so... But let's not worry about that right now. So obviously about the specific point, as you can tell, that the actual picture frames on the actual stealth credit sequence is actually now in gold as opposed to silver. So even then though, that's all I can really think about it. Now I'm pretty sure about the fact that it gives us a specific hint what's going to be up next. In terms of the forms of the actual progression, for the sake of the forms of Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, obviously it will show us Galactic Knight, which obviously gives us a hint for the sake of the forms of, you know, the true arena is going to be unlocked for sure. Although, mind you, in order to actually unlock the true arena, by the way, not only do you have to complete extra mode, but you do need to complete the arena first. Because obviously, without that, then obviously about the fact is you have to force yourself to actually tackle through the arena, so... That's why indeed during the forms within a deluxe version of Kirby's Return to Dreamland to begin with, that obviously everything else has got switched around this time around due to the forms of the amount of content that we're getting. So, yeah, that's what I can really think about it. So, I will promise you guys I'll give my final thoughts in terms of the forms of Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe at some point on, you know, next Thursday, once we're able to dive right into the true arena, because not now, because obviously about the fact that we still need able to go through a lot of, you know, progression so far. And I'm pretty certain about that specific point that we might able to actually get ourselves the next mask, potentially, which I think the actual unlockable mask that we can potentially try to get, which appears to be by the forms of Megalore EX, I'm pretty sure. So as a result, oh, and also same applies with Landora EX as well, because technically we're able to unlock 2 masks, so it looks like, seems about the fact that we've only got 1 mask left, and as a result, that pretty much takes care of the forms of the masks collecting. So, yeah, it doesn't take that far from that particular point worth noting for, but hey, at least it's pretty something, I guess. So, and I suppose I should probably point things out is about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, no, that's what I can really say about it. Again, I will promise you guys I will discuss some more details about other stuff and doing at some point in next week, because aside from all that stuff, though, I can't believe by saying this, we're getting very towards the end of this game. But either way, though, I know I keep on saying that, but either way, though, looks like we got ourselves this glorious Kirby Gold statue on this specifically with that last portion of that staff credits thing right there. And there's that particular Vanpool logo, which, as a result, I will get more details on that specific point until for later. So, with that being said, though, I think we should probably end things off at this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe for the Nintendo Switch. Basically, we have to go back onto extra mode for the final time, except now we're going to be able to tackle through the challenge stages. So, yeah, I'll see you guys until next Tuesday. Later, fellas.